So what I'm doing here is, after I've started at the corner, you want to go 16 inches off center because you want to hit some studs. Use your tape measure to mark it. I'm using a 1.5 inch finishing nail, and I just cut off, since I don't have a punch to drive it in, I just cut off a piece of extra Allen wrench I had laying around, some tool steel, so that I could punch it in a little bit deeper than the surface of the board. You just take and hammer it in, get it started, and then you want to push the baseboard down so it's flush with the floor. Continue hammering. Once you've got it most of the way in, you want to be careful not to hit the board. Take your Allen wrench or whatever punch tool you have available. Just knock it in a little bit deeper than the face of the board. You're going to come back with a little joint compound later and fill that in and sand it smooth. So you're going to continue to do that down the length of the board. So now, if like me, you've got kind of a long wall, what you need to do is cut a 45 degrees. I was unable to get, I think it's a 19-foot wall. They did have a board that long, I think, but getting it to my house would have been pretty inconvenient. You would need like a trailer or something like that in order to keep it from breaking. I put it on top of my Jeep. There's no way it would have made it home with the wind resistance. It would have broken, come off the Jeep. So what I did was I cut it in half. What I'm gonna do is joint it right here. So you're going to cut the next piece at a 45-degree angle there, and then measure how long you need it to be to go to the other side of your wall, which is, in this case, down there. And I'm going to trim that incrementally until I get a piece that fits in there just right. Okay, I'm gonna keep making a video. What? I'm gonna keep making this video. Okay. So now you can see we've got the joint here. What you want to do is get that nice and tight, slide it this way towards the joint as best you can. And then you want it to line up perfectly right at this top edge before you hammer it in. You want that to line up nice. So then from here, I'm just gonna go ahead and take and put a nail right in, kind of right about here, just to hold it in position. I'll look for the stud later down this end, but I want to make sure that this stays nice and flush where it needs to be. here's a little tip for making the corners fit up nice and flush like this. So if you're putting your stuff in the corner and it's kind of doing that, and you're like, what the heck, there's too much of a gap there, just take a couple little pieces of cardboard. That's what I did. And stick it right in here. I've already done the shimming process, but you have to put a couple pieces in, check it, take them back out, check it, see where you're at. But you can see that joint's a lot tighter now. And don't worry about it being a little bit off the surface of the wall there, because when you put your caulking in there, you're not going to see that. But what you want is a nice tight joint here. That's going to be more important. And so I've got my joint over here. Again, that's pretty close. I want to make sure that this surface matches. This has a little bit of an overlap, but what I'm going to do is come back with a bit of sandpaper. You can see this side here is just a little bit higher than this side. I could probably trim it a little bit more and make it a little bit better of a fit, but I figure I'm just going to sand that. Get it nice and smooth. Once it's painted, nobody's going to see it. Once you're done nailing, the nails I use have like this oil all over them. It's getting all over my hands, getting all over the baseboards. You want to clean that off before trying to paint. Otherwise, the paint is not going to adhere due to the oil. So I've got just a rag here with soapy water. Just give it a good wipe. A little bit of dish soap. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper wrapped around a joint knife. I'm going to go ahead and sand these joints here. I'm kind of using this like a sanding block. If you have a sanding block available that's nice and small, you may want to use that instead. But I'm just going to kind of hit these areas right here where this joint comes together and get them to blend together nice and smoothly. I'm not going to worry about it getting it perfect too much, but obviously the better job you do, the better it's going to look. And it might actually even be easier in some parts like this to just kind of use your hand. But again, the point is you just want to smooth it out and have it blend together. Obviously at this joint, this is the part that's higher over here on this side, so you want to take more of that side off than the other. But be careful not to sand the detail out of the, like for example, don't sand this part down. You just want it to smooth over together. Be very careful. Just kind of sanding it and blending it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be ready to caulk. I'm just going to do this for the two joints, and then we'll be ready to caulk everything up. So after a bit of sanding, this is what we've got. As you can see, the high spot is sanded more than the low spot. That's what you want it to look like, because you want it to kind of blend right in. You don't want it to be too visible after painting. So I'll go ahead and hit the other one, clean this mess up, and start doing the caulking. All right, so caulking is going to be the next step. This is pretty straightforward. You just take a paintable caulk, whatever your preference is for that. You kind of have to develop your own style for caulking, but you just cut the tip off, take the little whatever stick that is there, stab this a few times so it opens up, and you just want to get a good little bead of caulk going. You don't want to put too much. But you're just going to get a good little bead going across the top. A good little bead going across the bottom. Like I said, you don't want to have too much of it going. Just enough to fill any gaps that might be here on the top and the bottom. And then also, right in the middle of your joints here, I'll just fill that in with a little bit of caulk. It's going to be a little trickier, naturally. And you can either use caulk in your nail holes, or I'm actually going to use joint compound and then sand it back out. But once you've got your caulk in place, just go ahead and take your finger and make sure it's down on all the little joints. Real good. Wipe off any excess. And same thing here along the wall. Just kind of wipe any excess away. Make sure you have a paper towel to wipe your finger off with between each swipe of the finger. Make sure you're not leaving any on the tile, because the wall, you're going to come back and paint, but the tile you're not, obviously. So make sure you don't have any left over on the tile you're going to have to clean up later. So you're probably going to have to take a few extra swipes with your finger to kind of wipe that off. And again, same thing in the corner, just kind of getting the excess out of there. Make sure you're getting it all in each one of the little nooks. Get it cleaned out. And again, make sure you get it off the tile real good.